Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Fantasy Winners with this edition of Tee to Green, and it is for the Players Championship. This is one of the best tournaments on the PGA Tour every year. It's actually probably the best tournament from a daily fantasy perspective, at least in my opinion it is. This is, of course, in TPC Sawgrass that has just a ton of fun, meaning there is water on pretty much every single hole. There are 4 par 5s, all of them have eagle potential, and then you've also got a drivable par 4 in there to boot there on the back side, so you get a lot of eagle potential. There are a decent amount of birdies, but you also get a ton of bogeys, a lot of double bogeys, and it's actually #1 on tour for most triple bogeys or worse. And so you just get a lot of fun, a lot of variant swings, and that just makes it great from a daily fantasy perspective. It's also just great because I think it's the best field from top to bottom, actually, of all tournaments. And that includes the majors, because the bottom portion of this field are PGA Tour players and not so much like the amateur players, the former Masters champs who are like on the senior tour or Champions Tour, I mean, or in past, like, you know, like they're or even older than that, or they're not like club pros like they are at the PGA Championship. And there are a couple like good ones of those categories, like I just mentioned, but like from the overall collection of them that kind of make up this field versus what you get here at the Players Championship, this is usually one of the strongest. It probably is the strongest from top to bottom. It's a little bit debatable, but that's just, in my opinion, what it is. And so, anyway, so yeah, TPC Sawgrass, as usual here for the Players Championship, very strong field. And so what you were looking at here on this page, I will show you is, thanks to Danny for helping me put this together, and that is, we're kind of got all the kind of different tool stuff that we use and kind of combined it into one page. It'll just make it a lot easier for me to kind of show it to you guys here in these Tee to Green videos and make it a little bit more clear what I'm talking about each and every week, as opposed to just jumping around from page to page a little bit. But again, all these tools are available to you on DailyFantasyWinners.com, and definitely go check them out there. Again, free to sign up there if you did not know that for whatever reason. And so anyways, all right, so taking a look at this. This is, so what you are looking at here, obviously, is the player name over here. This is just the player pool for who is in this tournament, both on DraftKings and FanDuel. And then you've got your what you would see on the odds per dollar page right here, just your odds information, odds per dollar. And then this is filtered by DraftKings salary. This whole entire page is for right now. And then over here in columns H through O, you are taking a look at what you see on the strokes gained putting regression tool. And then if I scroll over, which is now on your screen, you will see strokes gained statistics here, starting with strokes gained total, running all the way through strokes gained putting, and then there's some other statistics I will look at as well, just as far as birdies, eagles, driving distance accuracy, and things like that. And there's a lot more that I'll look that I can once in a while look at, but yeah, we'll spend most of the attention here looking at these handful of columns over here as we kind of go through the top guys. And so anyways, I think this will just be a lot easier to show you guys each week for the sake of clarity. And so let's take a look at one thing lineup construction wise here before we get started. And obviously you guys know I have been relatively critical of both websites, particularly DraftKings, but both DraftKings and FanDuel, of the pricing this year, not just because they've been, they've lowered the, or excuse me, they've raised the min salary on both sites. I guess FanDuel's technically they had to raise it when they changed the format with their salary structure. So I guess FanDuel's makes a little more sense. But yeah, for DraftKings, it doesn't make nearly as much sense. And so not only that, though, but they've also just been horribly priced compared to what the odds have been at the sports books. And so it's just when there's so much different, you just get like all these, like, it just eliminates so much of the field from being potential plays. When you have guys that are like, you know, 400 to 1 to win the tournament being the same price as 80 to 1. Like, that's stupid. So, but I have to give them credit here. This week they did a really good job, and I'm pleasantly surprised because this was a tournament that, you know, it's obviously one of the biggest tournaments. It's a strong field, and usually these are the ones that get really screwy, and it's not this week. It's really nice. So I will direct your attention to columns E and F here, which are just the odds per dollar. The odds per dollar tabs, DraftKings in column E, FanDuel in column F, and this is just basic conditional formatting as you would normally do on Google Sheets. And I'm just going to scroll down here since this is filtered by DraftKings price, and that is just, you will see here that the odds per dollar here as I scroll down here is pretty well in line. Like, Patrick Cantlay here at 2.74 at 7,500. I mean, that's, yeah, it's stands out a tiny bit, but it's not compared to 2.18 or 2.26. Like that's really not much at all. That's not enough to make it really jump out. And just pulling up Patrick Cantlay's. Let's see, what is his recent performance here? Is there anything even there to warrant like something super high ownership? Tied for 7th at the RBC Heritage, and then he missed the cut at the Masters, 30th at Mexico. I mean, that's like, I just don't think his recent performance really is going to make it jump out too much. It's probably just more than anything the strokes gained total and the strokes gained tee to green stuff that probably maybe just made him makes him hit the value maybe just slightly better. I don't know, but like really that's not much at all to make a difference, and especially when you're priced around like the same prices around guys like Tony Finau and Luke List, who are huge upside plays with their eagle potential since they're bombers. I mean, I just don't think there's really any guys here that are super obvious here just from a Vegas odds standpoint. They're going to jump out to be high ownership plays, and this is usually what I'm actually looking at each week to see if there are some like just golfers that are really horribly priced, and I just don't really see it this week, and it's really nice to see because I think that makes it much more strategic and a lot more. You have to do more research and dig in a little more as opposed to like just trying to figure out, okay, we know like a certain amount of guys are going to be highly owned out of this pool, and it just kind of changes the ownership game of GPPs, and I just don't think it's as much fun, and it's not as skill based, if you will. I guess or maybe it's a different kind of skill. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So, anyways, I applaud DraftKings and FanDuel for doing a good job with their pricing this week. That's the bottom line. And so, with that, let's get on into each golfer and take a look at this. It's kind of the same thing for me this week as it has been the past few times when we've had some of these stronger fields, is that I really think more of the balanced salary method is the better way to go here. I mean, there is just so little separating these guys at the top, and I especially mean this on DraftKings because DraftKings has obviously a much bigger drop off from what their max salary guy is to like what their 3rd, 4th, 5th guys are than what FanDuel does. Obviously, you can see this. Like DraftKings has 4 or 5 guys usually priced 10K or above every single week, and FanDuel usually has like it looks like they have 15, 16, 17, 18. Looks like they have 19 guys here. Actually, there's 2 more down here even. 21, 23. It looks like we got 23 guys priced above 10K, and they all have about the same max salary. It's 12,300 for Spieth and 11.6 for Rory. So it's slightly higher, but like still, that's obviously the difference of 23 guys versus 5 and what their odds are. Like that's just crazy. And so usually with DraftKings, like unless it's somebody that really stands out that he's by far better in a weaker field, or like it's like he's checking every box compared to some others, like the top couple guys on DraftKings usually just, in my opinion, from an odds standpoint, aren't worth playing. And you can just see that obviously in the odds per dollar right here, is that like your odds here really aren't that much different, and you're from an 11,600 to 10,300 or even 9,600 where Fowler's at. So for Rory McIlroy and Jason Day, yeah, as far as DraftKings, not into them as much just from a price standpoint. Well, I'll just touch on Rory here out of the gate. His putter is obviously a lot warmer right now. That's goes without saying. That's why we have him predicted at a minus 0.46 right now with our putting regression tool. We predict him to be exactly average. That's where we have Rory at, because he was below average here in 17 and 16, completely average in 15, unless there's not enough data to record strokes gained putting for him in 15, which actually might be the case, because I think that was the year he was injured for half the season. But then he was above average a little bit in 14, and then about average in 13. So we have him about average, which makes perfect sense. He's been above average this year at 0.464, so that's why we're expecting some negative regression there. What I do like here from Rory, though, the most is the strokes gained approach. Oh, this is off your screen. I apologize. For Rory McIlroy, right here, 43. This is strokes gained approaching the green ranking. This has come up significantly for Rory in the last couple of weeks. And it's come up this much because A, yes, it has been better, but B, he hasn't played in that many tournaments, so there was still like some high variance kind of in the data for him. And you're going to find some bigger swings with the guys that have played fewer PGA Tour tournaments, obviously in these strokes gained statistics on a week-to-week basis. And you're going to find it more with the European players who spent much of like January and February like playing on the European Tour, just maybe some of the bigger European names that haven't played as many of the the traditional like standard like PGA Tour tournaments. Like they're not playing like the Houston Open or like the Byron Nelson or whatever it might be, or RBC. Like there's going to be some guys there that like they just don't have as many rounds. Like Henrik Stenson actually just got to the minimum qualifier actually to qualify for the rankings and strokes gained statistics right here. And so anyway, so that's part of the reason why Rory's has bounced up as much as it has. And so, yeah, the only thing I don't like about Rory is that his putter's running particularly hot. I do know, I've said it before, it is possible that Rory has legitimately improved his putting with this lesson, but I at the same time here, I just look at this and I would say that just because Rory got a lesson and just because he's putting better over the last few weeks doesn't mean he's actually a better putter. And this could, there's probably several examples of players getting, lessons of some variety, and it helps them or it doesn't help them, or it helps them for a little bit and then it turns out that's just variance within itself. And so I will just say this, that I'd like to see a little more evidence of Rory being this good of a putter before I buy into that he's actually like this good of a putter on tour at 0.464. So that would be my opinion on him. And I don't like the price, obviously, at $11,600 on DraftKings. He's better on FanDuel a little bit, I guess, here, just from the fact that he is like the third or fourth most expensive here, looks like, on FanDuel. And so it's a little bit better there. The other thing I actually don't like about Rory from the Players' Championship perspective is usually when it comes to the Players, like Bombers can win the Players, like don't get me wrong, but usually the Players is not like a Bomber's paradise. And usually if you're like, for guys like DJ, for Jason Day, for Rory McIlroy, for those guys, they're usually going to have their advantage more on the golf courses that are particularly long, where they're going to be hitting driver a ton. The Bombers don't get to hit driver here a ton at the Players. And that doesn't mean, like I said, it doesn't mean they can't win. I mean, Jason Day won here a couple of years ago and he whacked 2-iron like off the tee, like not every time, but like a good amount of the time. And he crushed the field, I think, or he won by a reasonable margin when it was all said and done. But it's just to say, like, from a price standpoint, he's not going to get hit driver a bunch. His putter's running a little bit hot. Probably not my favorite play in the world. It's not like I hate Rory or anything like that, or I think he's a horrible play. It's not one of my favorite plays, if you will. So, moving on to Jason Day. He's coming off winning at the Wells Fargo last week. There was a crazy statistic posted it was on the Golf Channel, actually, after the tournament. And they were showing what the strokes gained approaching the green statistic was for each winner on the PGA Tour this year, and then compared it to what Jason Day's was. And I'll keep it simple. The strokes gained approaching the green metric for the winners on the PGA Tour this year have been are astronomically very good. Like, it's way above average, as you would expect, because it's the most predictive metric and everything like that. And it's usually the one that, if your strokes gained approaching the green metric is high, that usually almost always means you're in really good shape and have a ton of birdie opportunities. So it makes perfect sense. But on the flip, but for Jason Day, he was like barely above average. His putter was just insanely hot again. And as you can see, Jason Day, strokes gained putting right now is at a 1.594. That is insanely hot. Now, for what we predict him at a 0.57, which is one of the best on tour. It actually might even be the best on Danny's model. I'm not 100% sure. Let me, you know what? I'm curious. I actually want to see if if the model has Day at the highest. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, we have Day as the highest, and we actually have him as by far the highest over Mickelson, Harmon, Luke Donald, Kevin Kisner. Max is somewhat similar, I think, for his tee to green regression tool. But in any case, for Day, though, 1.594 is extremely high. That is not sustainable. I don't care if you're the best putter in the world and you have every single bit of mojo going your way. Like, that's just insane. And as you guys all know, I am as pro Jason Day as they come. And I'm someone who believes that Jason Day, if he is healthy and he is on his game, there's nobody better than him. And like, other than like, I mean, Tiger in his prime, like that withstanding, like I'm not including that. But if we're talking about all the golfers in the game right now in terms of what their ceiling is, I think Jason Day is the highest, because there legitimately is no hole in his game when he's clicking. But right now, if you do look at Day right now in the strokes gained approaching 169th, Because of that, because of his price, and the fact that he just won will probably steal some ownership, I can't recommend playing him here more than I can't be too into him this week. I think he'll garner too much ownership for how well he's actually playing, and I know he just won, and I should be stoked about that just because it's like things are coming around for him. But at the same time, there's just too many negative factors here. I think that it just doesn't make it one of my favorite GPP plays. So. A little bit unfortunate here. And by the way, just to make this also really clear, when I say I just feel like there's no huge difference here between the number 1 guy and the number 10 guy or even 15 guy, you just have to just look at where the golfers are priced each week and look at where the odds per dollar is each week, or even just the straight sportsbook odds. If you just compare it to from the Masters to the Players Championship, this order in terms of how the golfers are priced is actually significantly different here than what it was versus the Masters, which was only a month ago. And we haven't really had that much relevant tournament data to go off of to really swing that. I mean, Jordan Spieth is playing in his first tournament since the Masters. Obviously, Dustin Johnson's doing the same thing. And so, it looks like Danny's just got on here. Hopefully he doesn't mess with anything as I'm doing this video. But in any case, so anyway, so that's where I leave you with Rory and Jason. I don't hate either play, but they're certainly not one of my favorites for the reasons I mentioned. Jordan Spieth at 11,100. I don't like Spieth this week, despite showing a 0.70 here positive regression. Spieth's putter woke up at the Masters on his final round. That was something that we'd all been just kind of waiting for, and his putter woke up for the most part at the Masters. And so it is important to note that the Masters does not have the strokes gained statistics. So if the Masters was factoring in strokes gained statistics, this number here, 0.7, would probably be more like 0.5. I really don't know what I'm guessing here a little bit. And this minus 0.420, this would probably be more like minus 0.2, I'm guessing, if I just had to guess, or minus 1.5 or 0.15, excuse me. So his putter woke up. We all knew this was coming. It's probably coming right now. Here's the problem with Spieth, and this is one where I do buy the course history for. Jordan Spieth's course history here, he has played here 4 times each of the last 4 years. He finished tied for 4th in 2014, and he has missed the cut each of the last 3 years. I think there is something to this, because if we do take a look at Spieth's driving, and I will scroll all the way over here. Does it pop up? No, it does not. Okay, there we go. This is Jordan Spieth right here, and if you see right here, he is 87th in distance and 108th in accuracy. That's not the greatest sign in the world, and this is usually kind of the common case for Spieth, and why he kind of struggles a little bit more on ball strikers types golf courses, because usually if you're going to play a golf course like Sawgrass, where you need to put the ball in the fairway and you can't put driver in your hands a ton, you want to have the length so you can, so if you're like Jason Day, you can hit 2-iron, or Rory McIlroy can do the same. Yes, accuracy is important, but the course isn't that long, and so they can just rip a 2-iron 280 or something like that, or even pipe 3 with 310, and they can get away with that. Spieth doesn't have quite as much that luxury. It's not like he's a short hitter, but it's one of those things where he's not a bomber, and he's going to be hitting driver or 3-wood a little bit more than some of those bombers are. And it's okay if you're doing that if you're a really good accurate driver. Well, the problem is Spieth usually isn't that accurate of a driver. He's usually just middle of the road. And if you do take a look here, just kind of look at all these guys here, because this is, I mean, it's not perfectly filtered by strokes gained total, but it's filtered, generally speaking, from the best golfers to the worst. If you just look at driving distance and driving accuracy right here, you will see one of these cells left, sometimes both, but at least one of the cells in driving distance or one of the driving cells in accuracy for each player is green, or they're in the top 50 or something like that, or around that. You will see that they're at least a bomber, or they're at least accurate. They're usually not mediocre in both. Spieth is the one guy near the top here who is mediocre in both. To find the next mediocre person, you have to scroll all the way down to, I guess, Patrick Reed, but even Reed's 52nd in distance. And I know there's a little bit of variance in here and how this changes week to week, but still, that's not usually that good here when you have someone who's usually around 75th to 100th in driving distance, and then in accuracy is usually average. And that's just tougher. That's tougher on ball strikers golf courses. And so I'm sure there's a little variance in the fact that Spieth has missed 3 of 4 cuts, and he's not that bad at this course. But I will say that I think there is something to it in that this golf course does not fit him well. And it's tough to say that when you see this putting regression saying, hey, it's coming more, even though the number should be a little bit less than 0.7 for like the reason I pointed out the Masters. It's one of those things where I just don't really like him that much for this fit, and it's enough for me to say it's not my favorite play. Moving on down here to Justin Thomas. Justin has actually... I have to think that Justin Thomas is going to get a decent amount of play here, only because his odds per dollar here on DraftKings is really good here at 6.21. He's only 10,800. That's pretty. That's a pretty nice thing to have. His strokes gained statistics here are all very nice here. Total, tee to green, off the tee, approach to the green, everything's good. Which is actually funny when you look at Spieth that he's 25th and off the tee and 8th and approaching when his distance and accuracy hasn't even been that good. It's just that he's somehow kept the ball out of trouble, really is what it all comes down to. And that's why his strokes gained off the tee is 25th. But he can't get away with that on a golf course like Sawgrass because there's water everywhere. But anyways, back to Justin Thomas. There really isn't anything I can say that I dislike for Justin Thomas. His putter might be running slightly hot here. He's at a .369, and we expect him to be more like .11, but that's really not that big of a difference. So there's really nothing much negative I can say about Justin. As far as the recent performance goes, pulling this up here real quick. Yeah, I mean, he finished tied for 21st at Wells Fargo here just this past week. But that's still not like the worst finish in the world. And Wells Fargo's a tough tournament with the changes the Quail Hollow went under. Tied for 17th at the Masters, 2nd in Mexico, won the Honda, 9th at the Genesis. Like, his recent performance is all very strong. The only thing I guess I could say negative about Justin Thomas is that, let me scroll over here. His driving accuracy is 146, but again, Justin Thomas has actually had a decent finish here, and Justin is somebody that can usually just not hit driver here very often if his driver's not going very well for him. Like, he's somebody who's very capable of doing that. Justin Thomas does live in Florida, also for that's worth. He's had a ton of experience playing Florida golf, living down there and everything, and so bottom line here, I think Justin Thomas is probably the best play as far as the guys who are 10K and above, if I had to say, and at least from a GPP perspective, and probably, I don't know, maybe cash perspective too. I'm not sure. The reason why I say that is because Dustin Johnson is sitting here at 10,300, and I have to imagine that people seeing Dustin Johnson at $10,300 is just going to make everyone's eyes just completely light up and just automatically kind of play him here because there's still a large assumption that Dustin Johnson is the best player in the world and he has the most upside, and there is, I guess, some merit and truth to that. But it's still like 10,000. I have a kind of a sneaky suspicion that Dustin's going to garner a lot of ownership at 10,300. That just stands out a lot in itself. And Dustin's recent performance isn't too bad himself, even though he hasn't made a ton of noise. Tied for 16th at the RBC Heritage in a tournament that does not fit him whatsoever. As I said, like, that's just a tournament Dustin cannot hit driver at, basically. Tied for 10th at the Masters, tied for 7th in Mexico, tied for 16th at Genesis, tied for 2nd at Pebble. I mean, tied for 9th at Abu Dhabi, won Kapalua. He's extremely consistent. It doesn't mean I think you should fade him or anything like that. I just mean I think you're going to have to pay, or not pay up, but you're going to have to spend quite a bit of ownership into him if you're making a bunch of lineups to over-own him. That's just kind of my guess here, my suspicion for Dustin. It's a little bit tougher to predict right now, though, just in fairness with the ownerships, just because there are this many good players right now playing this well right now. But I still just think that price is going to glare out with Dustin to be at least 20%. I would say maybe more likely 25 and even close to 30 is realistically possible. So just from a GPP perspective, I like Justin Thomas a little more. From a cash perspective, I guess I would probably say Dustin is a little bit better, but it is close right now between those two. I guess Dustin maybe just at the slight edge over JT if I had to say, but just as far as who's a better player right now. But it's really close. Justin Thomas is that good right now. I know some people don't buy into that, but I have no problem buying into it. Anyways. Moving on, I'll just kind of move on here into the 9K range real quick for you guys, because this is, again, kind of the same thing, because we have so many great players. Obviously, like I said, the difference between first and like 15th, it really isn't much. You take a look here at Ricky Fowler here, all the way down through, I would say, Henrik Stenson. There isn't much negative I can say about any of these guys in this range. Like, Justin Rose is a minus 0.67 in the strokes gained putting regression tool. I probably wouldn't load up on Rose in this tournament because of that. And then Jon Rahm's running a little bit hot, but Jon Rahm's, like, we have to figure out, like, if you're comparing Jon Rahm's and Justin Rose's putting regression, you will see here Jon Rahm, we only have putting statistics from him in 2017, and then obviously he wasn't on tour before then, so we have no other data for him to go off of. Justin Rose, we have a lot more data to go off of. So this minus 0.67 means a whole heck of a lot more than this 0.35. And so this minus 0.35 for Rahm could easily just actually be like a minus 0.1 or even like average. For all we know, Jon Rahm is one of the best putters on tour. Like, we really don't know. So, because Rahm was above average last year, and he's even more than above average this year. So, so Rose is really the only guy in here I would say that I kind of have like one negative thing to say about. And then I would also throw in the fact that if you scroll over here to the strokes gained statistics, Justin Rose is 84th in approaching the green. Rahm is 141st. That's probably not my favorite thing either, so those would be two slightly negative things I'd have to say about him. But Stenson, Casey, Sergio, Fowler, I think they're all fantastic plays for GPP, honestly, and I think for cash. Maybe Stenson would be the only guy I probably wouldn't do as much in cash, but man, that is such a good salary. I really don't blame you at all for going Stenson cash there. And actually, as I say that, I just realized, yeah, he finished tied for 5th at the Masters, tied for 6th at Houston, and 4th at Arnold Palmer. He's playing great golf. Yeah, actually, I take that back. I think actually in cash and GPPs, I think those are all fantastic plays. And actually, Stenson has the best odds per dollar here, right here at 4.06. So actually, that makes perfect sense why he'd be really good in cash. So there you go. So that's where it's at right now. Obviously, I will spend a little more time here on the 8K and 7K guys, as well as the 6K, I guess, in the forum with some of my favorite plays this week. You can hit me up there with questions on the forum, obviously, at DailyFantasyWinners.com. Free subscriptions over at Daily Fantasy Winners for all this data I'm showing you and more. And then to have discussions with me in the forum, and then the other guys there, and everything like that. So anyways, thanks for watching. I'm at Nick Yuskevich on Twitter. Daily Fantasy Winners is on Twitter, at DFantasyWinners. And if you like the stuff we're giving you, give us a like to the video. Awesome, and good luck, guys.